Rhea had always been the kind of person who could light up a room just by stepping into it. Her colleagues often said that her laughter was contagious, that her smile carried a kind of warmth that could thaw even the coldest moods. At the office, she was the one people went to when they needed encouragement, or even just a gentle reminder that things would be okay. In the cafe near her workplace, the barista remembered her not because of the latte she ordered every morning, but because of the way she never forgot to ask how his day was going. Even children in her neighborhood ran to her when she passed by, tugging at her dupatta and giggling, as if her presence alone was a source of joy. But what they didn't know, what they could never guess, was that Rhea's smile was not the product of a life free of troubles. Behind that cheerful face was a young woman shouldering the kind of weight most people couldn't imagine. When the sun set and the streets grew quiet, when her mother had gone to bed and there was no one left to impress with her cheer, Rhea sat at the old wooden table in the corner of their kitchen, staring at the stack of unpaid bills. Each envelope felt like a ticking clock, a reminder of how fragile her world was. Her father's sudden death 2 years ago had left their family shattered. He had been the pillar of their small household, the kind of man who woke up early, worked long hours, and never once complained about the sacrifices he made. Rhea could still recall the way his eyes lit up when he spoke about her dreams, how he promised her that one day she would finish her studies abroad. But his life had been cut short by a heart attack, leaving Rhea with not just grief but also a mountain of responsibility. She had been 23 then, still learning who she was, and suddenly the caretaker of her mother, the manager of their home, and the sole breadwinner. The transition had not been easy. There were days when she wanted nothing more than to scream, to cry, to let the world know how unfair it all was. But she never did. Her mother needed her to be strong, her neighbors expected her to keep up appearances, and her workplace counted on her consistency. So she chose to hide her tears and carry her pain privately. Her smile became her shield, something she wore not to deceive others, but to protect herself from breaking apart. Yet in the quiet of the night, when exhaustion wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, she often felt like she was drowning. She missed her father's voice, missed the sense of safety that had once come from knowing someone else was watching over the family. There were moments when she questioned whether she was strong enough to handle it all. Still, every time despair threatened to consume her, she found herself clinging to small sparks of gratitude. Rhea had learned to find beauty in the little things. The kindness of the elderly shopkeeper who slipped her an extra packet of milk when she didn't have enough change. The unexpected laughter of her mother on days when the weight of loss didn't hang too heavily on her shoulders. The soft evening breeze that cooled her skin as she walked home, reminding her that even amidst chaos, the world could still offer moments of peace. Even the bus that always arrived on time became, in her eyes, a blessing, a small mercy that saved her from being late to work and facing unnecessary stress. Her gratitude did not erase her pain, but it gave her strength to carry it. She often reminded herself that her father had taught her to see life this way. He used to say, "Beta, the world will never stop throwing problems your way. But if you can count even one blessing each day, you will never feel empty." His words echoed in her heart every time she smiled at a stranger, every time she forced herself to laugh even when her spirit ached. What no one understood was that her joy wasn't fake, it was deliberate. It was a choice she made every single day, not because her life was easy, but because she refused to let hardship steal the light her father had once seen in her. And though her struggles remained invisible to the world, her gratitude was woven into every smile she gave, every act of kindness she extended. Behind every smile, Rhea carried an untold story of silent struggles. But she also carried a quiet strength, an unshakable belief that even in the darkest nights, there was something to be grateful for. Weeks turned into months, and Rhea's life continued as a delicate balance between holding herself together and keeping her mother safe. There were mornings when exhaustion made her body heavy, when she wanted to stay curled in bed and forget the responsibilities waiting outside her door. But then she would hear her mother softly calling her name, and something inside her stirred, reminding her that giving up was never an option. At work, she excelled, not because her mind was free but because she pushed herself harder than anyone else. Her boss often praised her commitment, never realizing that her dedication was born not from ambition but necessity. Every paycheck meant food on the table, medicines for her mother, and maybe a little left over for savings. While her colleagues spent weekends traveling or shopping, Rhea spent hers budgeting, cleaning, and finding new ways to stretch every rupee. Still, she never let bitterness creep into her heart. When someone shared their happiness with her, she celebrated with them sincerely, even if she had nothing to share in return. Gratitude had become her secret fuel, and though it was invisible to others, it carried her through the hardest days. She thanked the universe for every small grace, like when her mother's test results came back stable, or when a neighbor unexpectedly sent over homemade food, saving her from another night of cooking on tired legs. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Rhea sat on the bus, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. A little boy, sitting across from her, was crying uncontrollably, his mother struggling to comfort him. Without thinking, Rhea leaned forward, made a funny face, and gently asked the boy what was wrong. Within minutes, his tears slowed, replaced by giggles. His mother, visibly relieved, thanked Rhea with teary eyes. That moment stayed with her long after she got off the bus. It reminded her that even though she carried so much pain, she still had the power to ease someone else's burden. That realization became a turning point. Rhea began to see her own struggles not just as weights but as lessons. The nights she cried silently had taught her resilience. The mornings she forced herself to smile had taught her discipline. And the small blessings she collected each day had taught her gratitude so deeply that it became second nature. Slowly, she started to believe that her journey, painful as it was, had shaped her into someone stronger, someone capable of giving light to others. One day, her company announced an opportunity for a leadership training program abroad. At first, Rhea dismissed the idea. How could she leave her mother behind? How could she afford to dream when survival itself was so difficult? But her mother, sensing her hesitation, took her hand and said, "Beta, your father always wanted you to fly. Don't let my weakness be your chain. I will manage, you must live." Her mother's words pierced through her doubts, and for the first time in years, Rhea allowed herself to imagine a future beyond struggle. She applied, not with the confidence of someone who believed she deserved it, but with the quiet determination of someone who knew she had nothing to lose. Weeks later, when the acceptance letter arrived, Rhea sat at the same kitchen table where she had once wept over unpaid bills. This time, her eyes filled with tears of joy. It wasn't just her achievement, it was a tribute to her father's belief in her, her mother's unwavering support, and the resilience she had built through years of silent battles. When she boarded the plane for the first time, she smiled, not the practiced, protective smile she wore every day, but a genuine one born from hope. She knew challenges would continue, that life would never stop testing her. But she also knew that she carried within her a strength that no hardship could break. Behind every smile, Rhea still carried her silent struggles. But now, she also carried a story of gratitude, resilience, and the courage to rise above. And in that moment, she finally understood that her father had been right all along. Even in the darkest nights, if you can find one reason to be grateful, the light will always return.